Cultivate to Thrive podcast. I am your host, Michelle Gunn. I am a self actualization and mindset coach. I am grounded in faith. I am here to share with you things I think will help inspire you, help grow your faith, and help you develop to be the person that God created to be. You can find me on my website, michellegunn.com. That's Michelle Gunn, one L, two N's, michellegunn.com. You can find me on my personal pages, LinkedIn, Facebook, and Instagram. You can find me on and TikTok, and you can find me on my professional pages, Cultivate and Thrive, on LinkedIn, Facebook, and Instagram. You can also find me on patheos.com, patheos.com. I have a column there called Graceful Awakening, and I would love to see you there. I am also now a contributing author to the book Divine Blueprint. Grab yourself a copy. There are 17 chapters from 17 different people who tell you how God has worked in their life. I'm sure you can find something to inspire you. During these episodes on Cultivate to Thrive podcast, sometimes it'll just be me and sometimes it'll be a special guest. But welcome, and thank you for joining. Hello, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. How are you? I would love to see you here in the comments. Drop a note with your name and where you're joining from. If you're joining from the replay, use hashtag replay so I know when you came. I really appreciate it. So, generally, I start with scripture reading. And today I wanted to start with something a little different. Those who know and follow me, keep in contact personally, know that I've just been through the first hurricane of the season this year. It's the first one that affected our area, we'll say that. Hurricane Beryl, I'm in Texas, United States, and we were hit with Hurricane Beryl. Actually, we were blessed that it was only a hurricane level 1. Other countries didn't fare as well as we did, although we had tons of damage. We were we were without power for days, and of course, in Texas, soon as the electricity's out, we get hit with heat advisories. There are still people without electricity in this heat. So please do keep people in your prayers, and not only Texas, the other countries that were hit by Hurricane Beryl in this hurricane season, which my husband said when he was watching some news this morning. They go through naming from A to Z. They're already on L. So this is a very active season. There's going to be lots of damage, and very sadly, there already has been and will be more lives lost to these nasty storms. For us, there is gratitude, even through the worst things in life. If you have a foundation of faith, there's always something to be grateful for. God gives us the rainbow at the end of a rainstorm. On my Cultivate and Thrive pages, I shared with you. I have a flower in my flower bed that's bloomed twice this year, and it's the only one in the flower bed of like flowers, Canada lilies and calla lilies, and only the one has bloomed. And the second time, it bloomed in conjunction with us getting our electricity back, and it's just beautiful. And it's standing straight and tall, even though the winds whipped around in that flower bed and ripped apart many of the flowers there. That one is standing tall. So let that be a message for you today, that no matter the storms that you face, things are not always in your control. In fact, most of the things are out of our control, but it's how you react to what you've been through that defines you. Are you strong in letting your beauty shine through no matter what? That doesn't mean that you can't share with others your pain and your weaknesses because we're human and we're here to support each other. But don't let it define you. Be strong, be beautiful, be you. Today, I'm talking about finding your village, navigating childcare challenges within faith and community. Now, I'm not sure how many people I will reach who are just starting on this journey, who are in the middle of this journey. I'm thinking probably more of us have already been through the journey, but this is a great opportunity for you to share and to support other people. Share your experiences, share your tips, put them in the comments so that it can help other people. We are, after all, here to help each other. Many times, and as one gentleman pointed out on my post, this is not just for mothers, and it's not just for single mothers. It is also it's for parents. I just happen to aim at working moms, but the information is real for parents in general because we have a love and attachment to our children, as we very well should. So this is an emotional time. Just even if you're a planner and having your kids, to look forward to how you're going to structure your life with children, because children make a big impact and a big difference in your life, in the way you live your life, financially, physically, emotionally. It takes a toll on us and stress, physically, emotionally, mentally. But there's also great rewards with children that you can't get from anything else. But when we're looking at childcare, people have differing views, and that's okay because there's not a one size fits all when it comes to childcare and taking care of your kids. My husband and I, when we got married when I was in my last um, semester of college, and we knew we wanted to start a family. And it was important to me to be able to be there in their younger years, if at all possible, because I wanted to be a mom and I wanted to help mold my children and support them and encourage them and help give them their foundation of education and spirituality. Not everybody's able to do that. Now, we did look at what we needed to give up to do that, and we did make sacrifices, absolutely made sacrifices. Would I do it all the same again? Maybe not exactly the same. I may do things a little different. I know in raising my kids, it's very easy to look back and see the mistakes I've made as a parent, but that's another show, another day. But being there for my kids, I wouldn't change. I maybe would change timing a little bit and maybe who I chose to look after the kids because of the situation. We did not put them in traditional daycare, but um, we did sacrifice greatly for the choices we made, and I think it was worth it. But let's move on. So, some of the I'm going to hit some of the issues that we're facing with childcare today and then talk about some solutions. And I would love for anybody out there to chime in the comments when you have thoughts and opinions or ideas or suggestions that would be helpful. Because again, this is not a one size fits all solution. There is today the challenge of finding reliable childcare, especially with social media. I don't know if things are that much different in daycare or if we're just more aware of them. A lot of things in society that happen that we say, oh my gosh, this never happened when I was a child. It happened. We just didn't know. With social media and the video cameras and streaming, we can just be so more aware of what's going on. So, some of the challenges of finding reliable childcare is just frankly availability and waiting lists because they get filled up. Because Really, nowadays, it's hard for one parent to stay home. Our families need two incomes to survive in most cases. We need the two incomes. And then, of course, that brings up the high costs and affordability concerns. Does it make sense to use most of your paycheck to pay for childcare and have a little bit left over? Well, that's an individual decision that you need to think about and weigh the options on. I know there were times when we were struggling when I took small jobs to help pay the bills at that time, and basically that just ate away at our IRS tax refund. We would have got the money back that I earned in the tax refund, but we needed the money then due to different circumstances. So there are also different reasons for making your choices. Then there's the varying quality and safety standards, right? So some of the things you can have is, well, I'm jumping ahead. Let me finish. Sorry, I get carried away. So, the varying quality and safety standards are definitely something you need to be aware of in the different options. And I'm going to talk about different options next. And also, there's flexibility with hours and locations. Not everybody works a 9 to 5 or an 8 to 4, Monday through Friday. There are jobs that are different. And even if you're working remotely at home, if you have a child that needs constant care and attention, as most young children do, you can't focus on your job, and your employer will only be so patient. And if you're doing customer service representation from your home remotely, you can't be on a call with a customer trying to solve their problem and then you have your kids screaming for you, right? It just doesn't work out that way to be a good option. So there's definitely different things you need to think about. And again, it is definitely not one size fits all. When we look at evaluating different childcare options, these are the ones that I've thought of, and there may be more. So let me know. Again, in the comments would be helpful for others. So there's licensed daycare centers. And when we talk about licensed daycare centers, I'm talking about, and I don't know how this works in other countries, so I'm speaking mostly to the United States, right? So licensed daycare centers are usually licensed by the state you lived in. And there are generally reports, and you can look up reports about these daycare centers if they've had issues, if they've had incidents, if they meet safety requirements, things like that. And, also if it's a center that deals with food and stuff, there's the health options as well. And of course, with every option, there's first aid because children will be children. They will get hurt. How is that handled? In home daycare providers is another option. There are licensed in home daycare providers and there are unlicensed in home daycare providers. So you must be careful with that. There's nannies on au pairs where you pay someone to be with your kids. Some of them live in, some of them are there for like the time that you're at work. Some of them are on weekends, some of them go with you on your vacations. A lot of that depends on your needs and your financial ability to sustain it. You don't overlook family members and friends, people whom you trust that are close to you. And make sure, even with family and friends, don't choose someone just because they're available. And do listen to your children if they have complaints. Don't just believe the adults, listen to your children. Also, when you're listening to your children, listen and make sure they're not just trying to get attention. You always need two sides to any story. Then there's after school programs, and I believe now they also have before school programs where your kid can go before school and stay after school. I think that a lot of the after school are run through like YMCA and different organizations. Sometimes they're daycare centers that provide you with extra options for kids who are already in school, so you don't need full-time childcare. And again, childcare can occur from infant to whatever age you deem your kid is responsible to be at home. In the state of Texas, legally, I believe it's 12 is the youngest they can be home alone. You know your child, not every 12-year-old is responsible. And you have to make sure you teach them about uh, what to do if something were to happen and how to handle situation. And they have to be able to follow directions and pay attention. Those are other things when evaluating childcare options that you need to consider, right? You need to consider what your child can handle and what will work good with and for them. So, some key considerations for choosing childcare are proximity to home or workplace. You don't want to have to drive half hour, an hour opposite of where you're working because that adds more stress to the day. And it also means your kids will need to be in that childcare longer. So, you really have to know, will that childcare be open long enough for you to pick up your child, or open early enough to drop them off? And also, what are the additional charges for those extra hours? Some daycare some daycare facilities charge hefty rates when you're late to pick up your child. So, and that brings to the hours of operation aligning with your work schedule and your um, traveling, right? Your work schedule and your commuting, I should say, is a better way to say that. Commuting. Um, Cost and potential subsidies or financial assistance is very important. Again, you need to really examine how much childcare costs compared to what you're bringing home. Are you going to have anything left? Is it worth it? And make sure you consider the gas spent and the time spent and the stress it causes if it does. Some are very good. Some kids are good with it. Some parents are good with it. Some not so. Stress caused for that situation. That's all part of the cost. And also, make sure you look into subsidies or financial assistance wherever possible to help with the child care. You want to look at safety, cleanliness, and the overall environment. Reviews are very important. And know that a lot of companies in every industry pay for reviews. So, although looking at a lot of 4 and 5 star reviews may make you feel better, you may need to really take a look at the negative ones to see what the complaints actually are. And they may not be that important to you depending on what the complaint is. But I think the more truthful ones will be in the complaints. Most people, sadly, don't provide reviews when there's a positive experience unless there's some kind of financial gain or some kind of reward for them to post that review. They're not really thinking about helping other parents. Now, there are groups like your neighborhood groups, online communities that you can ask questions about daycare options, and people will be forthcoming about that. But also look for people who just had a bad experience. That's a one off and they're just going crazy, venting all over because they didn't get their way. So do keep that in mind. You also want to look at educational and developmental activities. Even if your child is home with you, you should be working on their education and development, right? Reading with them, reading to them, playing games, practicing motor skills, helping them grow and develop them, teaching them morals, right from wrong, how to be a good person, how to be kind. Are these daycare options that you're looking at, do they offer these opportunities? And how do the levels go as the kids age? Do they change, or is it just the same activity no matter how old they are? Sometimes it works, depends on the activity. And you also need to look at your child. How does your child function? How does your child interact? Is this an environment where they will flourish and grow, or will they become timid and withdraw? Do remember that when you do choose a daycare and it doesn't work out, you're not obligated to stay. keep looking if you haven't found the right one. So and make sure you take advantage of the resources that are out there for you when it comes to finding childcare. So there's local and national childcare directories that you can find. You can just Google it and figure out, where it's at. And a lot of times they're online. You can get checklists and whatnot. I'm trying to think of some organizations uh, because when my kids were young, we didn't have the internet when they were born, so I wasn't able to Google stuff. But probably like WIC or other health department agencies. If you Google childcare checklist, you might be able to find something to help you know what questions to ask and what to look for. There's review sites. Again, when you're looking at reviews, don't look at reviews just at the business. Look for independent reviews from people, not just what they post on their website or their Facebook page. Look around, ask, use your mouth, ask. Community resources and word of mouth recommendations, that's huge. I think that's where a lot is. And that's where our online communities, our local online communities can really help us with that. And then there's employer provided resources and benefits. You want to make sure that you do take advantage of those employer provided resources and benefits. You want to make sure you look at your faith-based childcare solutions. Don't forget about churches who provide daycare or childcare. There's many that do that. They run them, or they have preschools, which can be very nurturing and can align with your values and your morals. Your faith community is a good place to go and ask questions. They can be a resource for support and assistance. There may be a mom's group, and if not, hey, start one. Right? I bet if there's not one, that it's probably very much needed in your community. So these options will help provide more of a sense of community and moral obligation, or excuse me, moral education that can be reassuring for parents. I'd like to offer some practical tips, and I would also like to ask you if you have some, please do drop them in the comments. You'll be helping other moms, fathers, parents to provide adequate childcare for their children. So some practical tips are: take the time and conduct thorough interviews and background checks for any potential caregiver. I had one of my children, we had one of our children with I want to be very vague about this. I'm not in contact with this person anymore, haven't been for years, but I don't want people who know me to know who I'm talking about. But with a neighbor who offered to watch our child. And at first, the child seemed very happy there. And I was, somebody that didn't live far from us. I would drop our child off, pick them up. But I always ask my children about their experience, what they did, no matter if it was in school, faith formation, childcare, anything. I always asked. One, it's my nature to ask questions, and two, because I care about my children. So I always ask them. My child started not wanting to go, very much not wanting to go. And of course, I asked the child care provider, if they could shed any light, and they basically had no clue. Well, it just turned out that we never found out if something happened, but we made sure if it did not happen again. The child was removed from that situation, and we found another better option. So you do need to make sure that you're in communication with your children to make sure that everything is going well every day. And of course, there will be bad days. They will get upset if they don't get their way. So keep the lines of communication open early and let them know that they can tell you anything. Anything. Doesn't mean they will, but there's better chance that it will happen. Make sure you visit the facilities and observe interactions between the staff and the children. In this particular situation that my child was in, we spent time with these people and their children. So it was not a strange situation that I put my child in. But when my child was no longer happy there for whatever reason, we made sure and took our child out. So make sure that you're visiting the facilities, observing interactions between staff and children, and also ask. There's a lot of them, especially with infants, they have the cameras, which are nice that you can see your child, but know that every staff member is aware that that camera is there. You know as well as I do that you and I, along with everyone else in the world, act differently when we know we're being watched, good or bad. We just do. Inquire about pop-in visits. Are you allowed to drop in at any time and go see your child without warning? I think that's very important. Now, there has to be securities in place, and ask about that as well. Who can come see my child? Who can pick up my child? What proof do you ask for? So, those securities need to be in place. So, do ask about their security process and how the children are handled. You also might want to ask about if an instance occurs, how is it handled? I mean, we've all seen cases that have come about from in daycare centers where a daycare employee gets really upset with the child, smacks them, shakes them, screams at them, something like that. Hope that's happening less and less each day. And I know it happens in homes too. Um, so I hope and pray that's happening less. But what are their procedures when something like that happens? And what types of things are you notified about? Kids play, they get hurt, kids fight. Are you notified about everything? Only important things. What is important? Now, there's not, the way I see it, there's not one communication process that's the best. It's what works best for you and your child. So remember that. It's what works best for you and your child. So it doesn't matter if you know 10 other parents who put their child there and are very happy with it. If it doesn't suit your needs, it doesn't suit your needs. Make sure you establish clear communications with the caregivers and have a backup care plan in place, especially for a sick child. What will happen when your child's sick? If your child is sick, they cannot go to daycare. Please don't send them with a fever. If you think they're sick, check them. We don't need to make every other kid sick and spread illness. Now, if it's a mild thing, that's different. Again, it's based upon the child care provider's guidelines, and you need to know what those are before you start child care. So, what happens if your child is sick and can't go to child care? Do you call into work? How much notice do you need to give? Is that an option for you? Do you have an employer that will work with you? Or do you have an employer that has a zero tolerance policy and thinks that your kids are your problems? Don't bring them to work. And I don't mean bring your kids to work. I mean, they think show up no matter what. Who cares about your kid? Hopefully, more employers are dropping that mentality. But it's important to know these and have backup options before you start. Maybe there's a family member who can watch them on occasion, like maybe when your child is sick. And then you have to look at your relative's health because if they have poor immune systems, you don't want them exposed to your child's fever either. So, again, you need to be careful and be informed of what is going on and what can occur in the future. It's all about planning and really investigating. That's the term I'll use. Investigating. Investigating your options, knowing your child, knowing your family, what works best. Again, I invite you to drop hints, comments, questions here in the comments. Let's help each other and let's be a support for all working parents. Thank you so much for joining me today on Cultivate to Thrive podcast. If you found any of this information useful, please do like and share, subscribe to my YouTube channel. And if you'd like some spirit filled stories of God working for unbounded success, do pick up a copy of the book, Divine Blueprint. I have dropped a link to purchase it on Amazon in the comments, and that is my affiliate link, just to be absolutely transparent with you. But I hope you have a great day, and I hope this has been very helpful for you. Always cultivate to thrive.